Hello, and welcome to Hot Rods in History. My name's Anthony Simpkins. I'm with my brother in here, Brad Rulo. And if it's motorized,
glamorized or otherwise, don't be surprised. It's right here on Hot Rods in History.
and today's subject is Labuse.
Labuse.
Labuse. The mouth, they called him. It was a French name for the mouth.
Hmm.
He went by a couple other names too. What was his other two names?
Labuse and Labouche.
Labouche.
Labouche was the mouth. Labuse was the buzzard.
The buzzard.
And it was all in the way he
treated the people he captured.
His right? victims, yeah.
Yeah. This is directly going to be related to the TV show in history right now, Oak Island. So I just want to make it clear why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. We're doing this program, and he's the subject because we're finding proofs, I would say, that may lead to the birth of the swamp. Mm-hmm. So
I think so.
Take it away, Brad.
Well, he was born in Calais, France, in 1695. Uh-huh. The birth of a future pirate. But, like we were saying, he's not just any pirate. He was perhaps the most notorious. Notorious means, you're famous for doing bad deeds.
Which he was.
Yeah. So his nicknames were either La Bouche, meaning the mouth, or Labuse, meaning the buzzard. Levasseur, he was born into a wealthy bourgeois family. He was highly educated in engineering, architecture, and one thing in particular, box drain technique, which will come in handy as the story progresses. Tony, you know where he went to school, right?
Yeah. Actually, the school had been changed a couple times, but he actually originally went to the College de France, is what they called it. And this school was formerly also known as the College Royal and the College Imperial. It was founded in 1530, and really what it was about, it was basically teach the knowledge, the secret knowledge to great architectural designs that we see back in the medieval times and even before. One of the things that they taught was box drain building, which comes into play when we're looking at Oak Island because they had the 5-finger box drain that was built into the booby trap. So I started to notice the similarities in Labuse's schooling back when he was a young man up until the time he was a pirate. He was highly, highly educated. So this led us kind of down this rabbit hole to start looking more into Labuse. And there's only 2 pirates, actually, Brad, that actually buried treasure. A lot of people think all pirates buried their treasure. They literally would spend it faster than they could bury it, most of them. Now, Captain Kidd was one. Now, he's going to play a part in this later. Mm-hmm. And then we have Labuse, and he buried his treasure, and not just any treasure. Isn't that right, Brad?
Right. Now, with his high standing and his excellent education, Levasseur became a French naval officer. And most likely he preferred giving orders as opposed to taking them. Eventually, he became a French privateer and hence he turned pirate.
Into a pirate, and that was common back then, that most people started out working for their country.
Yeah.
And then what they would do, they found out there was more money. And they would do this legally, by the way. Legally, the country would give them passage to literally go out and rob other ships. So England was robbing the French was robbing the English. Well, what had happened was they got tired of sharing the riches because the pirates had to work hard to gain access to ships. Yeah, and if you don't know about Portugal, Portugal is actually a Knights Templar country. It actually means port of the Grail, port of the Holy Grail. That's why you see Christopher Columbus coming out of there and using their money, because they had actually known about the United States. They knew the passage there, and they knew the Earth, was supposedly round. They knew that stuff. So what you was really taught in school really wasn't the truth at all. They had known this for years. There's a church built up in Massachusetts. It was built in 1354 by the Knights Templars, so they had been here. They knew the passage. So and that's what we're kind of discovering as we go, is all these kind of telltale tales about the history. You got to remember, it's called history because it's his story. So who's ever leading the countries, it's their story. So that's where this story is going to get really, really, really interesting.
He teamed up with a English pirate named Taylor,
Taylor, that's right.
and
That's right.
uh, in April of 1721, uh, between Labuse and Taylor, they captured a Portuguese vessel named the Virgin of the Cape, and it was down in St. Denis Harbor on Bourbon Island, and that's just east of Madagascar.
So yeah, Brad's right. They dismounted these cannons. They took their 200 men. They leave the harbor. They're heading towards Portugal. Well, Labuse was actually in the very same town that they're at the very same time. He's, asking around supposedly about the ship and why they're removing the cannons. Well, of course, they told him, well, it's been damaged and they're trying to lose a little weight. They're carrying 700 tons of precious Christian artifacts.
Yeah.
So Labuse and Taylor, they conjure up a plan and they capture the ship on the way to Portugal. And supposedly, the Portuguese, this is where it gets really iffy. The Portuguese supposedly ran it aground to keep it from sinking. That's one story. The other story is in a kid's book I got from the library. Labuse actually disassembles the ship after he takes it. But then the other story is when they stopped the ship to capture the ship, they actually go to approach the ship, and once they take it, okay, I got to remember, I think Labuse only had like 30 guys, but they're able to overtake a ship with 200 men on it, okay, and he grabs a hold of the bishop, this Goa bishop, which is from India. Okay, they grab him, Labuse and Taylor, and they're holding him for ransom. They're going to take him for ransom. And then the people of the ship, they go, "Oh no, don't take him. Take our treasure. Take our 700 tons of treasure, Brad. We don't want to lose our Goa." Yeah, it sounds a little suspicious to me.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know about you, but I'd thrown that Goa in the boat for him,
I mean, life is precious, but
Yeah, come on, man. 700 tons of treasure.
Yeah, that's.
And the more interesting part even about that is that this Goa that was from India, his name was, remember?
Castro.
Castro. Isn't that funny? And what did he do in India? Didn't he leave a rebellion?
Yeah,
Raised up.
He was not real. He was against India, or no, he was against.
He was against Portugal.
Portugal.
Yes,
yeah.
and that's the other point. He was absolutely right.
Yeah, he was against Portugal.
Yeah.
He was for the Vatican.
Yes, the Vatican made him a cardinal. So
Yes.
all this becomes
Archbishop.
What was it?
An archbishop.
No, he was a bishop, but then they made him a cardinal, I think, at the Vatican. I think that's all. Is he a bishop?
Well, it says
He was a bishop, but then they made him a
the cue cards say archbishop.
the cue card. Okay, maybe he was, but anyway, he had ties to the Vatican, so that's what made this story kind of unravel.
Yeah, there was something there.
Yeah,
and there's always something there, and that's what you always got to look for things. You always got to question it. What does this mean? That's what we're.
Yeah, why?
That's what we're doing. That's what I'm learning to do, and
right. Yeah, that's what we're both learning to do. Is really, really question things and bring reasoning to it and common sense. Why would you give up 700 tons of treasure?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we're going with this. Where are we at, Brad?
Well, when Labuse took it over, and Taylor, they renamed the ship the Victorious, and evidently they repaired it and sailed, and also took the 200 men.
Yeah, it's a great point.
They took the 200 men crew.
Yeah, and they supposedly repaired it though. That's a great point.
Came with the ship.
Yeah, yep.
And this manpower, as the story progresses, you're going to find out this manpower comes in really handy.
Really handy.
It's possible that the Vatican paid Labuse to intercept the ship because it was the very treasure that Captain Kidd was after years earlier. After all, like we say, it was full of priceless Christian relics from around the world, right, Tony?
Well, yeah, it had the 3-foot cross. Well, it depends what story, again, you want to listen to. It went from 9 foot, I found it a 6 foot, and I found it at a 3 foot. Now, I don't know about you, Brad, but if it's made of solid gold, I don't see guys carrying a 9-foot cross into battle. Could be wrong, but I think it was more of like 3 foot that they could carry into battle. But the 3 foot golden cross that the Knights Templar actually carried into battle was known to have godly powers. They've literally carried this into battle with the reassurance that God was on their side and that it gave them, they said, an over amount of confidence to win battles, which they did.
And that cross, talking about the cross, it's on Labuse's flag.
Great point.
It's on his flag. The
Yeah.
flag that he had, it was. I mean, you got a picture of that, don't you?
Yeah, we're going to put the picture up for you. You'll see the picture of this flag. But
There's
yeah, Brad brings up a good point. It has his flag. Most pirate ships had what was called the Jolly Roger, which was, as you know, a skull with crossbones. Now, what people don't understand is the Jolly Roger came from burial boxes that they used in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
With
the skull and the two femurs
right
coming up like this. And
right, because when you died, they would break your legs, they would cross them, and they'd put you in what was called a burial box. Now, that Jolly Roger was originally Knights Templar. Most people don't know that, but it was a Knights Templar symbolism. They use a lot of symbolisms, and that was one of their symbolisms. I don't know exactly why, but that's what they used. The pirates, for whatever reason, kind of adopted that. And Labuse, his flag was different. Brad brings up a great point. It was a full-size skeleton, was holding a chalice, right?
Yep.
And it was holding a cross.
Yep.
And at its feet, it had a bleeding heart. So Brad and I kind of think that the
Vatican must have been involved.
Yes, it must have been involved.
But now was this was
the
added on? These other three symbols were added on after the capture of this treasure? Is that it, or?
Well, it had to have been. We don't know for sure, but yeah, it's a great point. We don't know for sure, but yeah, these symbolisms had to be added onto the flag after the fact that he took the Portuguese vessel, and I think it may have been something that would have protected the vessel, maybe, because he was announcing that he's carrying the Knights Templar treasure or the
Vatican treasure.
The Vatican treasure. Maybe it was a way of protecting the ship.
The Portuguese treasure.
Yeah, we're not sure, but he definitely took it from the Portuguese. There's no question about that. And for what purpose, we're not 100% sure, but there is evidence leading toward the Vatican. But with a flag, he was holding the skeleton's holding the chalice in one hand. He's holding a golden cross in another. And like I said, you'll see it. You'll see the picture. We'll put it up for you. And then the bleeding heart. Not sure what that means. It could mean Mother Mary. It could mean Mary Magdalene. We're not sure. And that's the whole point of doing this program. So you can go check it out and give us feedback.
Yeah. Well, we believe that he intercepted this treasure and took it to Oak Island. We believe Labuse was the last depositor of Oak Island.
Yes.
Somewhere after 1721. He used the natural landscape of Oak Island, to hide the treasure. The Oak Island was known with pirates as being a depository for years because of the Knights Templar, and they had used it in the past, and the pirates used
there's a lot of proof that, of course, the Knights Templar had used it way back to the 1100s.
And Oak Island had some tunneling built prior, but it was Labuse's engineering background that enabled them to make the booby traps, the flood tunnels, and the swamp.
So this is an illustration of Oak Island, the swamp area. This is where we can kind of describe what we think happened with the evidence that's been found. So Marty and Rick, maybe this will help you guys figure out the old swamp. So what we have right here is this would have been the 200-foot long Portuguese vessel that Labuse would have taken. They cut across the Atlantic up the coast of the United States up into Nova Scotia to Oak Island. And what we believe happened was there was 2 islands at one time, not the one that you see today. So what he had done, we think that him and the 200 guys, had floated this vessel into that channel that would have divided the two islands. At that point in time, they would have cut the masses off the ship and then got it prepared, and then they would have blocked off each end of the channel, and they had bellows back in the days that kept the water out of the ships and whatever. And they were probably met up with a group of ships. I'm guessing probably that the Vatican had sent, or whoever he was working for had sent some extra vessels there with supplies, maybe some oxen, maybe some big carts to move rock and dirt and whatnot. And then again, they were highly educated people. You know, they had a lot of, what do you call it? They had a lot of skill back then, and a lot of knowledge how to.
And the 200 men, do you
Yes,
believe that they were possibly engineering?
Yeah, I think if they had, well, what I think is if they were of, good question, if they were of Knights Templar origin, then they had a very, very good idea on how to engineer and build. Yeah, I think that ship was put in place and
Along
put
with
on
the
that
men.
mission. I think
That's
they
what
were
I was
handpicked.
wondering,
Yeah, for this trip. Yeah, absolutely. So then what we see is once the water is drained out of the channel, then they take the ship, they roll the ship on its side. Now, they could have took the cargo off prior to this, but they had to build the road. And the road that we see in the island, at the island, in the swamp area, is actually a Portuguese design. Again, we see signs of Portuguese type building. So one can surmise that the people on the ship probably had some kind of a Portuguese background, because the road mimics a Portuguese road. And then that would have allowed access to the ship. They would have unloaded the ship, and then the ship possibly would have been rolled on its side to help cover it up. Now, what's weird about this, Taylor actually made the comment to one other pirate. The pirate asked what they did with the ship because he knew they'd stolen it, and he said burned it. And on Oak Island, if you watch the show, they do find pieces of charred wood from a ship. So we think they might have burnt the ship to help, get the ship at a smaller scale to make it easier to bury. But that's exactly what they did. Was to bury it, they dug tunnels in the side of the channel to get access to the island. Underneath the island, they would have dug the tunnels here, used the dirt to fill all this area in, and that would have produced what we call the swamp now. And the other thing is, Brad, the swamp is built in a triangle like this.
Yeah.
And it has an all-seeing eye like on the dollar bill. And so that's going to lead to a story toward the end of Labuse's life. We think we might have figured out that too. So let's move on, and we'll take a look at some more evidence.
All right.
Maybe back this story up.
Okay.